Have you noticed how uncomfortable people get when you start changing? They won't say it directly, but you'll feel it. In their nervous jokes, their sudden silences, the way they shift when you speak truth instead of staying safe. What you're witnessing isn't judgment, it's fear. Because a strong mind does more than think differently. It confronts everything others are too scared to face. Nietzsche understood this. He knew that when you stop living on autopilot, you disturb the ones who still do. You expose their comfort zone simply by refusing to stay in it. The world doesn't fear strength in muscles or money. It fears strength in the mind. A mind that no longer seeks approval, no longer obeys invisible rules. A mind that doesn't bend when pushed. It terrifies people because it reminds them they're still asleep. And the first step, it's not changing the world. It's confronting the illusion that you need it to accept you. What no one tells you is that mental strength doesn't begin in peace. It begins in rupture, in questioning everything you were told to accept. When you begin to challenge the rules, doubt what's popular, and think for yourself, you're not evolving quietly. You're shattering illusions. And people don't like that. Not because you're wrong, but because your freedom reminds them of their chains. Nietzsche never spoke of soft change. He believed transformation comes through chaos. He said, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." Real power isn't born in comfort. It's born when you face pain, loneliness, failure, and you don't run. You stay. You suffer consciously. You grow. Most people avoid discomfort, but you learn from it. And that's when they begin to fear you. Not because you hurt them, but because you've become someone they can't control. When Nietzsche declared God is dead, he wasn't mocking faith. He was exposing the comfort it provides. He tore down the illusion that someone else is responsible for your life, your suffering, your salvation. Because as long as you believe there's a higher authority pulling the strings, you'll never fully step into your power. True mental strength starts when you take radical ownership. No rescuer, no divine plan, no excuses. And that's terrifying. Because now it's all on you. Most collapse at that threshold. They can't handle the weight of building meaning from scratch. But those who dare to stay in that emptiness, those who stop outsourcing their truth and begin forging their own values, those are the ones who become unbreakable. They don't borrow meaning, they create it. That's where Nietzsche introduces the idea of the Übermensch, the one who rises above herd morality, who doesn't conform, who leads not with dominance, but with complete internal sovereignty. This kind of mind doesn't ask, what is right? It asks, what is worthy of me? It doesn't look to the world for direction. It becomes the source. But this shift doesn't come cheap. To become this version of yourself, you'll have to kill parts of you that still crave comfort and applause. You'll have to embrace the silence that comes from not fitting in, the isolation of walking a path few are strong enough to even see. And while the world clings to certainty, you'll learn to breathe in ambiguity, to stand firm when everything collapses, because a strong mind isn't measured by how much it knows. It's measured by how much chaos it can hold without breaking. A strong mind isn't loud, it's grounded. It doesn't seek to overpower. It simply is. When you walk into a room with that kind of presence, people notice without knowing why. It's not your voice they hear. It's your stillness, your lack of need. That's what makes you magnetic. Most people are frantic, always proving, always chasing, always performing. But you, when you begin thinking deeply, choosing your responses, standing in your truth without flinching, you interrupt that rhythm. You become the contrast. And that contrast makes people uneasy, not because you're wrong, but because you reflect what they avoid. Nietzsche knew that the path to this kind of mind isn't paved with praise, it's paved with rejection, ridicule, loneliness. Because the moment you stop playing by the herd's rules, They will try to pull you back. They will question your motives, mock your choices, resist your growth. But you can't build an extraordinary mind while needing ordinary approval. You must be willing to look arrogant, cold, even distant, not because you are, but because anything that isn't immediately understood is labeled a threat. And that's the cost of thinking for yourself, of living awake in a world that sleeps with its eyes open. But here's the reward: peace, not comfort, not numbness, peace. The kind that comes when you no longer owe the world an explanation, when your mind belongs only to you. You'll be feared, misunderstood, but more than that, you'll be free. They won't understand your silence. They'll mistake it for arrogance. They'll say you've changed, because you have. You're no longer explaining yourself, no longer performing for their comfort. That's the cost of strength. The stronger your mind becomes, the less space you have for shallow conversations, forced connections, and fake validation. Nietzsche wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." And that's the truth of this path. You will shrink in their eyes, not because you've become less, but because you've risen too far for them to reach. This is the paradox. Mental strength isn't about dominance, it's about detachment. You stop needing to be liked, agreed with, admired. You don't move to prove anymore. You move because it's true for you. And that truth, carried quietly but unapologetically, is power. It's not about always being right. It's about being rooted enough not to need to convince. You don't get pulled into their noise. You don't argue to win. You already know, and what you know is enough. This makes you dangerous, not because you attack, but because you don't bend. Because you're no longer programmable. You've stripped the layers of influence, fear, and expectation, and now your choices come from clarity, not pressure. That kind of mind, it terrifies people. Not because you threaten them, but because your freedom makes them question why they're still trapped. You become a mirror they can't escape. And most people would rather shatter the mirror than face what it reflects. So keep building. This is where the old world ends, not the world outside, but the one inside you that used to shrink, explain, and wait for permission. That world no longer serves you. You don't need to be understood to be whole. You don't need to be liked to be powerful. You don't need to be followed to lead. Nietzsche didn't teach dominance. He taught transformation, and transformation means death of illusions, of people-pleasing, of inherited beliefs that kept your mind small. You felt it. The friction, the shedding, the loneliness that comes with awakening. But now you see, it wasn't isolation. It was elevation. You don't need armor anymore. You've outgrown the war. A mind like yours no longer reacts. It observes. It no longer begs. It chooses. It no longer breaks. It bends, then rebuilds, stronger. You've made peace with the unknown. You've learned to hold tension. You've walked through storms without turning bitter. That's what makes you terrifying. Not rage, not noise, not bravado, but the quiet certainty of someone who has met themselves in the dark and come out unshaken. The world will keep testing you. It will call your silence weakness, your clarity arrogance, your boundaries cruelty. But you don't need to explain, because now you understand. Your strength isn't in how loud you are. It's in how little you need to say. So here's the question only you can answer. What part of your mind have you been afraid to strengthen, because you knew it might cost you the comfort of being understood? Comment below. Not for likes, but to make your declaration. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs presence, and you've already started becoming that presence.